So I'd love to welcome Sandra Jane for everyone to see, and she will be presenting on Standing Tall in the Face of Adversity, the Power of Wellness Enhancing Practices.
Well, thank you so
Wonderful.
much. I am just so excited to be with all of you today. I thank you for staying. Sometimes the last presentation of the day, people are tired and ready to kind of settle in for the weekend. So thank you for staying. It's really nice to meet all of you. I'll just give you a quick idea of who I am. It was so nice of Andrea and Joan to invite me to talk some about our wellness program. You can see I do a lot of research at the University of Texas in Austin, here where we live, through their School of Nursing. I also have a small private practice of psychotherapy here as well. Research, written a couple of books, great fun, and serve on two really important mental health steering committees, national level meetings, really just trying to advise the groups about what topics are really important in the space of mental health. So that's me in a nutshell. So Andrea was so nice to share the title of the presentation with you, and you can see kind of this definition of adversity. Some of us might share that as the gentleman hanging from the rock, high above from the ground might attest to, but I think we'd all agree adversity, challenges, trauma, whatever language sort of fits for our situation can be very different for many different people. And so as we have our conversation today, you may kind of begin to think about what falls underneath that umbrella for you in terms of the challenges you're facing, either yourself, with a loved one, with your child. And just to kind of set the stage, I mean, whatever adversities we may have been facing prior to COVID-19, I mean, I guess for most of us, when that really got our attention was about mid-March of 2020. So we're pushing pretty close to 18 months of dealing with this pandemic. I think it has taken whatever adversities we may have already had and really amplified all of that. And it certainly has done another thing. It has shone a very bright light, shined a very bright light on what our limits are individually when it comes to this idea of resilience and wellness. And I would share this with all of you. This is something that I believe very strongly in. I spend probably 80%, 85% of my professional life really exploring and researching and educating on resilience and wellness, because I believe it is one of those non-medication based practices that we can all benefit from. So if we think about traumatic events, and again, you may prefer the language adversity, challenge, whatever feels right to you, I just want you to be aware the data tells us this. For all of us that have experienced that, we are exposed to a trauma and adversity, and we all usually respond by our mental well-being dropping, right? We see a drop in where our baseline is. For many people, they don't recover. They sort of stay in that space where they've dropped off. Some even worsen, but they just get stuck and aren't able to get back to baseline. Now, there are some, about 20% of that population, where even though their wellness dropped in the face of an adversity, they not only improve back to baseline, but you see that dotted line, they excel beyond that. And that's what you see to the right, that photograph that just says post-traumatic growth, that there is wellness and resilience for many after we've been sort of hit hard with some sort of traumatic event. And so this is what we're thinking. This is what our research is all about. Is wellness, are wellness enhancing practices really a potential antidote to any of life's adversities? But we really need to define wellness first. Wellness has lots of different definitions depending upon who you are, your background, your life experiences. But here you can see World Health Organization They tell us health and wellness is a state of complete physical, mental, and social well-being. And it's not just merely the absence of a disease or an infirmity, a difficulty. And I want you to notice that this definition was pushed out in 1948. So it really is tried and true. So no point in reinventing the wheel, because this is a fantastic definition. All right, let me share with you why I think wellness as an antidote really makes sense. And here you go. There's a ton of data, and all of our work is evidence-based, that wellness enhancing practices do several things. They improve depression and anxiety. They are anti-inflammatory. They improve wellness. And honestly, they are the consummate example of a mind-body connection. So let's just talk for a moment about exercise and whether or not wellness is good for our brains. Now, I promise you, Friday afternoon, I'm not going to overwhelm you with data. So I'm not even going to dig into the details of this study. I just simply want you to know that when we look at different brain structures and why they are important to us, the hippocampi, because we have two hippocampus, one on either side of our brain, and think about it this way. Those two brain structures are like the emotional filing cabinets of the brain. That's where we store positive and negative emotions. That's where we regulate emotions, manage our emotions. That's where memory is stored. So it's very important to us in our functioning. And this was a really interesting study where they took folks, I mean, these were not people who had chronic illness. They were just folks who lived in the community. I kind of took offense to older adults when it said ages 55 to 80, because I'm well past the 55 mark, but okay, if I'm in that group, I'll take it. None of them had dementia, no signs of dementia. And they were either in an exercise group or just regular stretching. And just look, after the study, at the 6-month point, their hippocampi, both left and right, had more gray matter volume than when they started. And so what that means is their hippocampi was super happy and doing well, certainly doing better than it had before they implemented exercise. All right, Miss Andrea, something, I don't know what happened with the video. It sort of went away and now the slides won't move forward.
Oh dear, you're back on. Your video's back on.
Yeah, so I don't know how it got turned off, because all I'm touching are slide advancement, but now things are not moving. Once I clicked your button, there we go.
There you go.
All right, so let's also think about adversity and how sometimes when we are faced with a challenge, it can be really hard to maintain a positive attitude. But I want to give you just access to one study amongst many that may really encourage you to go back and rethink about the importance of doing your very best to cultivate positive emotions, to kind of fertilize them, if you will, like you were growing a garden. Because I want you to know positive emotions like the ones you see here, awe, compassion, contentment, joy, love. In one study with undergraduate students, they measured positive emotions along with a marker for a pro-inflammatory cytokine. So it measured a marker of inflammation. And the higher the level of self-reported positive emotions, like the ones listed here, the lower the levels of inflammation. So listen, positive emotions are no longer just touchy-feely, isn't that nice kind of experience. These are important to our physical and emotional, cognitive well-being. Again, beautiful example of mind-body. If our mind and our heart are filled with positive emotions, which we can nurture and grow, inflammation is lower. All right, I want to spend the rest of the time together, about 15 minutes or so, before we just hop into what I hope will be a robust Q&A session, because I hope you have lots of questions. I want to share with you our evidence-based wellness program. It's called Wild5 Wellness. WILD is an acronym which stands for Wellness Interventions for Life's Demands. And so this is not, even though you know from my introduction that I work in the space of mental health as a therapist, a psychotherapist, this program has been studied far beyond the community of mental health patients. It's been studied in the community. It's been studied with just a population of chronic pain patients, patients with rheumatoid arthritis, college students, healthcare practitioners, both in pain management and in mental health. Now, the program at one time started as 30 days. Then we extended it to 90. Then we even went to 120. And we have settled after 10 years of research, 30 days seems to be the sweet spot. And so we kind of branded that 30-day program and we refer to it as the Kickstart 30 program. Again, the takeaway, you can start at any point, right? You may not be doing well in terms of wellness practices. You can start there. Or you may be a really good practitioner of good sleep, great nutrition, all of that, but there's still and always will be room for improvement. There we go. And so again, our question I think we all have to ask ourselves, can we really cultivate stronger resilience, wellness through wellness enhancing practices if our ultimate goal is pursuit of post-traumatic growth? And obviously, I wouldn't be showing you this if I didn't believe 100% that that is absolutely doable. So here's the program in a nutshell. You can see the name again, and that star represents the 5 wellness enhancing practices that we have been studying for right at 10 years now. Exercise, mindfulness meditation, optimize sleep practices, social connectedness, with a little bit of a caveat because of COVID-19 we'll talk about, and then also optimization of our nutrition, what we're eating, and all that goes along with that. Now, in the middle of that star, you'll also see the negative white space, another white star. Do you notice that? And I share this with you because we added another element to these 5 behavioral practices. And those are the positive psychology traits: happiness, enthusiasm, resilience, and optimism. Because again, it's not just about changing our behavioral practices, but it's also about changing and managing our thoughts differently, better. Remember, positive emotions, they reduce depression and anxiety. They're good for our wellness and they reduce inflammation. And you can see at the bottom, just a couple of takeaway points, what we've learned after about 550 people from across the country and Canada have completed this program. There's nothing new here. None of you are going to be like, wow, that was interesting. Never heard of that. Because these are tried and true practices. These really are ancient practices that work in our modern day. These are the things that our parents and our grandparents told us to do. Go outside and get some exercise, eat more vegetables, get better sleep, go play with your friends, right? Our grandparents told us too. So we can rely on these. They're all equally important. You may not like all of them. You may not want to do all of them, but I would encourage you, dip your toe into that. Try the ones you don't like, because sometimes you'll be surprised at what you gravitate towards. And I think really more important than any of it is that perfection is not the goal. I practice this routinely and have for 10 years, but please know, I'm a type 1 diabetic. I wear an insulin pump and a glucose sensor. I've done that in 35 years almost. So long-standing relationship with the chronic illness. I have not been the epitome of perfection when it comes to following treatment recommendations. I do my best. I want you to know I have some days that are fabulous and other days that I'd rather not talk about. So as you do this, as you say, oh, I want to try some of this, if that happens for you, just be super kind to yourself, have a little self-compassion, and know that perfection is just not achievable. And there are positive psychology traits. We'll talk about those in a moment. And here you go. You can take a quick look at this. I don't want to spend a lot of time on it because I want to save that for Q&A. 30 minutes of exercise, moderate level intensity each day, 10 minutes of meditation. Sleep is only about sleep hygiene practices. That is it. We recommend 6. As you look at those, you'll realize, well, there's nothing new there. My clinician's been telling me that for years. But we ask you just implement 4 of the 6. That way you have a little wiggle room. You get to pick which ones you want to try and play around with the ones that scare you. Social connectedness. Remember, you got to make adjustments for COVID. COVID has disrupted all of our lives in many ways. But one of the profound ways is it's really challenged us to maintain our social connectedness to other people. And the way we did this is pre-COVID, connecting either by meeting in person or phone calls with 2 friends or family members. And nutrition, I know this is I had this great, wonderful call with Andrea and Joan to learn about the Oley Foundation and what your organization and all of you are doing and learning together. And wow, nutrition, that is important to all of you. And so when I thought about talking with you today, I would say what I often recommend even to my patients: listen to your nutritionist. Don't pass on what the nutritionist has to offer you. Again, I'm a type 1 diabetic. I learned so much from my time with my nutritionist. This program, all we're asking people to do is track what you're eating, right? You'll have to modify that based on your personal adversity and what you're dealing with. But again, it's more all of these practices. I will give you a little heads up, a little bit of a tip most people don't learn until they've done the program. And that is, you'll realize that the whole program is based on a foundation of just being more mindful and more purposeful in your day-to-day activities, whatever those may be. If I could, just very quickly, I want to share the data with you. This is one of our larger studies. It had 82 people who completed the program. So in my world of practice, depression, anxiety, and sleep are hugely important. I would guess, without knowing it 100%, that for your community, depression, anxiety, and sleep are probably important as well. And I want you to see that after only 30 days of practicing, we on average saw a 43% improvement in depression, 40% in anxiety, and really look at sleep. Sometimes that can be such a challenge, almost a 30% improvement. And certainly there were outliers. Some people didn't do as well, others did better. But on average, in the world of mental health, we don't see these kind of changes after 30 days. And that's one of the reasons that we are so committed to sharing the program with other people, spending time with groups like yours so that it's out there. At least then you have the choice to say, yep, I'm ready to give it a try. I want you to see the wellness pieces. And again, the Hero Wellness Scale, that's now a validated scale that we make available to anybody for free. There's no money attached to it. I just want you to see again, on average, I won't read them all out to you, but just take a quick look at how each of these improved. So it's not just about the behavioral changes, exercising, eating better, all the things we talked about, the Wild5 components, but it's also about that star in the middle. It's about the positive emotions. And I want you to see in this study, it is unheard of that self-reported changes for resilience improved by 63%. So I would hope that you would be as excited about these numbers as we have been. We've completed 13 studies to date. We're enrolling now our 14th study. And what you've seen in this slide and the one previously are very similar to every study we've done. So regardless of the population, this is pretty much what we're finding consistently. Measurement matters. I want you to know, again, this scale, free to you to use. I'll work with Andrea and Joan to make sure that you have access to it. It's just a great way to measure your wellness. It's a great way to get a feel for Maybe you do it once a week. Maybe you do it once a month. It's super simple. Over the last 7 days, how happy have you felt? The next 5 questions, right? This, you add up your scores, 0 to 50, the higher your score, the better your wellness. Tracking matters. If you do the program, here it is. I only show it to you so you can see. Super simple. It takes less than 30 seconds to answer this, just to give you a sense of accountability for how you're doing. I want you to know about resources. Actually, this, you don't even have to circle back. I don't have to circle back with Joan and Andrea, because here it is. You can go to this website, click on the wellness tab, and the forms that I just talked with you about, they're right there, and you can download them for free. All right, again, you can look at this. I'd love for you to think about what we talked about today, cultivating resilience and wellness. Oh my, it's a lot like growing a garden, if that's something that any of you like to do. But it is all about just little baby steps, right? You can't grow a magnificent rose garden like in a day. You got to do it. You got to cultivate it. You got to take little steps. In terms of how we think and behave, when you approach these practices, we have to change our actions, right? You have to change. Well, you don't have to. You have a choice to change your actions. We want to work on those attitudes. Remember, positive emotions. I'm going to keep driving you back to that study. Anti-inflammatory. Make sure your expectations are reasonable. Don't expect to go to 0 to 60 in 2 seconds. Give yourself some time and some space. And that last number 3, please do it sitting on a foundation of self-compassion. Be kind to yourself. Changing behavior, developing new habits, it just takes time. And then finally, resilience, wellness, all of that. As we begin to build these tools, we really propel ourselves towards this space of post-traumatic growth. And again, I think this is beautiful language, that we not only can reach our baseline, but we can far exceed that. And I would end, before we do Q&A, on this comment: wellness, resilience, interchangeable, scientifically supported antidotes. And you might consider your situation, a response to life's slings and arrows. I probably need to update this, because I like it in terms of it being an antidote to life's adversities. Because no matter what it is that we've run up against, adversity is a nice description. I think it's a nice umbrella, because your adversities may be very different than mine. We may share some, but it really doesn't matter. It is about building and creating a tool chest, if you will, for wellness enhancing practices, along with building our resilience. You might want to call it your resiliency reservoir, right? You want it filled to the top and readily available to you. So with that, I think I did pretty well on timing to leave enough for Q&A. Andrea, may I turn it back to you? And
you certainly can. Thank you, Sandra, so much. It was excellent and so insightful. I think we have some questions here. Let's get started. I have found that gratitude practices are extremely helpful. Do you include this in your program?
We do. So one of the things that I didn't really jump into is the positive emotions. We call, in the 30-day program, we call those the hero exercises. There are 2 questions that people complete at some point during the day. We usually recommend that you do it at night. And we might ask questions about, list 2 things that made you super happy today, right? List 3 things that you felt gratitude for during the day. So even though we sort of put those under an umbrella of hero, happiness, enthusiasm, resilience, and optimism, we have other things as well, gratitude being one of those, because probably 2 decades ago, when Marty Seligman from University of Pennsylvania began researching the power of gratitude, he began having graduate students in a survey class do these lists of gratitude daily writing letters of gratitude to people. And I want you to know that class, even to this day, fills up the minute it is opened. When that first graduate level class finished, they continued on, circled back to him saying how profoundly it had impacted their lives in a positive way. So it's there. We just don't call it out in the actual name of the program. Great question, though.
Yeah. I have one for you too. Say you just had a feeding tube placed, or you were just diagnosed with something, and you're completely overwhelmed. It's a great program, but how do you start? Like, how do you make that first move, take that first step?
Yep. If I may, I will connect that to when I was 27 years old and was told I had type 1 diabetes. My pancreas was producing no insulin. So it was not type 2. You just take pills. You get to take 5 shots a day. I'll be quite transparent. Do not even approach me at that moment and try to talk to me about wellness, resilience, gratitude, because I wasn't in that space. I was really in shock. And I don't remember exactly how long it took before I was ready to meet my treatment team and have those conversations. And probably the first 5 years it ebbed and flowed. Some days were better, but it was an ongoing adjustment. And so what I would say is make sure that your healthcare provider meets you exactly where you are. Because if it's still too fresh, right? And we as the clinician try to jump into making it better, it's very hard to hear it. So in mental health, our fancy word is we call it motivational interviewing, but the honest to God truth is all it means is make sure you meet your patients where they are. It's not your agenda, it is theirs. And some people just don't move as quickly along that path, and it's not our place to judge them, right? It's our place to walk the journey with them and be curious and ask lots of questions, and that conversation will naturally rise to the top.
That's great advice. Absolutely great advice. Do we have any questions out there for anyone, for Sandra, or let's see. If you're a caregiver, and how would you recommend, even for your consumer at home, does the buddy system work better, or is that something that helps when you have someone to start this program with, or work together with someone?
Yeah, no, I think that's also an excellent question. We oftentimes in research had people read the recruitment flyer and then say, can my spouse join me? I'm part of an X club, cards, tennis, running club. Can we all do it? Right. And so research calls that snowball research, because one person tells another, right? And even in the workbook, we have that, like an exercise buddy, right? Is a great way to approach exercise. We also say just having a wellness buddy, like somebody to do it with you, it always makes it easier. Many times in family therapy, I'll recommend it and everybody joins in. They all want to do it, right? Because as an example, if you begin changing your sleep habits, right? And one of the recommendations is no electronics 90 minutes before bed. People have a hard time with that one. So if you're following that and somebody else has the TV blaring in the next room, it creates a little bit of a challenge, right? Yep. So it is easier because, again, you create your own community, which is really what the Oley Foundation has done. You guys have created your own community. And I mean, really, after talking with you guys, it's just so powerful what you've created and how you support one another. So you can do that with wellness and resilience. You can create your own wellness community and do the program, or honestly, you can create your own program, right? Pick those things and decide, this is what I'm going to do this week. Let's do it together. And it's so much easier.
That's great. How does spirituality fit into this, or does it?
Such a good question, because
Mhm.
probably one of the most common questions we get is, why'd you pick those five? What
Yeah.
about music? What about dance? What about laughter? What about artwork? What about religion? What about spirituality? Right? So we've had that question many times. And I will share with everyone the way we chose them, and the reason spirituality is not on the list is that we knew five was already pushing the limit. We're asking people to do a lot. It's not like just optimize your sleep. We've got 5, 6 things going on.
Mhm.
Now, it's doable. We've had almost 600 people do it, so we know it's doable. But we went to the literature, we went to the data, and we spent hours combing through the data, and we pulled the top five. Top five meaning they had the most research supporting them as improving depression and anxiety, as improving wellness, and also as being anti-inflammatory. Now, you could go to the data and look up and research spirituality across all three. And I can guarantee you there's data to say people who are more spiritually connected, you'll see the same thing. There just wasn't as large a database. Now, the other answer to that question, because it's such a good one, is mindfulness meditation. Meditation comes in a lot of different forms. In research, we have a very specific set of guided meditations because everybody's got to do the same thing. But in the real world, that meditation may only be, or not only, it may be 10 minutes of a spiritual connection. It might be contemplative prayer, right? It might be a spiritual mantra based on the person's belief system. So there's a lot of flexibility. And I don't think that the five we picked really exclude spirituality, but I hope that's a reasonable question. I mean, answer for the person's question, because it's a really good one.
I think it's the perfect answer. And I think we have really run out of time. This
Okay.
was a fantastic way to end the conference. You make me want to go listen to my Calm app now.
There you go.
I was about to say, Sandra, I'm ready for a 5-hour session.
I know.
We do have one comment though from Penny Allen, one of our speakers earlier in the day.
Okay.
She said, what a great presentation and a great way to end the day. So
Thank you so
It was
much.
absolutely
really
perfect.
you need to know the stress, anxiety, inflammation that our members deal with on a daily basis, more than I could ever describe. So
No, I think Andrea, you and Joan both really educated me in a way that I just couldn't have done on my own. I'm very grateful to both of you for taking the time. I felt like coming into this, I just had a better kind of sense of who was going to be listening, because obviously I can't see everybody, which I regret, but that connection is really important. And I thank all of you, because when I do these talks and I have these opportunities, my wellness obviously goes up. So I thank you for welcoming me high wellness for the weekend. So I wish the same for all of
Thank
you.
you. Thank you. Thank you.